Okay, I'm going to get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Nicholas Carter. I am a lecturer at Christ Church College in Geography in Oxford, and I'm also the Access Outreach Admissions Officer for the School of Geography and the Environment. I'm going to be talking to you this evening about geography at Oxford. Um, we had a open day not so long ago for prospective undergraduates, and unfortunately, because of numbers and various other things, we aren't able to invite parents, carers, guardians. So we do like to kind of run a separate webinar just for you. Thank you very much for the questions you have sent in. What I propose to do this evening is I'm actually going to start with those questions because I do understand that some of you may have actually been to one of our university open days, in which case the presentation I'm going to give will be very familiar because it's the one that I gave during those. So just in case we have a few people here this evening who have already seen this presentation, I'm going to start off with the questions that were sent in. And then those people can very kind of happily disappear and go off and do other stuff, whilst the rest of us go through that. So just to start off, we had a few questions in. I'm going to go through them one by one. Quite a few of these questions I will also cover during the presentation. If you still want to hear more, do stick around for that. First of all, I had a question in about advice for applicants who are from homeschooling families. Um, Good question. This is something that I think you can find out more information on the Central Admissions website. If you go to the university website, if you go to undergraduate admissions, there's a section called, it's a drop-down menu, see applying to Oxford, then there's a for families section, and down at the bottom of the page, there's a most popular questions section. And in there, there's a part about homeschooling. And if you click into there, it gives you a little bit more information about how that will work in terms of admissions. From what I understand, things are very similar essentially. You still the candidate will still need to meet the admissions requirements, and the one area which it needs a little bit of thought really is the academic reference, which is still required. So it may be that you need to give a little bit of thought about that, about who might be appropriate to write the reference. It can't be a family member. So I know that some students who are homeschooled do actually do separate courses to their homeschooling, and so it may be someone who has some knowledge of the prospective undergraduate outside of the family environment in terms of kind of their academic progress and status. So that will be something for you to consider. Second question I had was about career prospects and what sorts of careers do graduating geography students tend to have. Well, the reality is now is that they have a whole host of options available to them. We find that our students don't just go into those traditional careers that you might associate with geographers, such as education, civil service. They're going into careers quite far-reaching and kind of careers way outside of that also. So we have students going into politics, the media, business and finance, technicians, education, still marketing, legal, IT, the arts, clerical, as well as the civil service still. So there's those traditional kind of areas which kind of geographers would traditionally kind of go into, but also we're finding that our students are actually kind of really branching out and going into a lot of other interesting careers now also. How do students or prospective undergraduates do well in interview? Well, good question. I think one of the key things there is making sure they answer the question that's presented to them, taking their time to do that, really think about what they're being asked. And I think another thing that I would suggest is, where possible, to relate into their own experiences as geographical thinkers. Now, that might be that they have done an activity outside of class which they found really interesting, and that kind of they have something to kind of say about that. It may be they have a Saturday job, and it may be that they are working in a supermarket somewhere, and they've made an observation about that even. And so it really could be anything at all. But I think kind of like relating to a young person's or kind of prospective undergraduate's own experiences can be really very interesting and useful in interview. One last piece of advice is tell the truth as well. Unfortunately, there have been occasions I've known whereby someone has written down that they've read a particular book on their UCAS form, and when you have kind of dug down a little, it doesn't seem that they have actually read that. So I think kind of like, putting yourself across in the best possible light does involve you kind of being honest about what you have done and what you do. How do you write a good focused personal statement? Again, that will depend very much on who the applicant is. And I think a couple of things here. I think displaying the interests in the subject that you're applying for is really important. So kind of showing how you are passionate about geography. What is it about geography that you're passionate about? Is it a particular area? I sometimes get asked if students need to kind of cover the whole physical and human geography spectrum on their UCAS form, and the answer to that is no. But what we do like to see is that there may be particular areas that the student is really interested in, and it's good to see a student who's going beyond what they've been taught in the classroom as well, and thinking about the world kind of outside of the classroom, and thinking as a geographer in their everyday life even. Question here: what are the additional extracurricular activities the prospective undergraduate students need to have in order to be considered for a place in Oxford to pursue geography? Well, there aren't any, is the answer to that. Kind of when it comes to admissions and when it comes to what we look for in students, extracurricular activities isn't something that really forms part of our assessment of someone, quite simply because not all students are able to do them, and not all schools have offered the same things, and also it's not really possible for us to assess that. And so when it comes to those activities, I think it really is kind of about choosing things which you're really interested in and which kind of help you develop as a geographer. So beyond that, I can't really offer any more advice on that. What is it that makes the difference between geography at Oxford and geography at Cambridge? Well, not so long ago, myself and my counterpart in Cambridge, Liam Saddington, did a webinar on this, and we're very much hoping that that's going to be available soon on the School of Geography website and on YouTube. So if you keep your eyes open on our website, you'll hopefully see that. And in that webinar, Liam and I go into the similarities and differences between the Oxford and Cambridge geography courses. So hopefully that will be a kind of slightly more sort of depth analysis of that for you. What I would say is that they're very similar, really, Oxford and Cambridge in what they do. Some of the differences really come down to the expertise that you find in Oxford and the expertise that you find in Cambridge. So, for example, if you're interested in cold environments, then it may be that you might be interested in kind of looking into going to Cambridge because of the Polar Institute, for example. And so, it's if you have a particular interest in geography and you're very keen to explore that and be in a department which is very strong in that interest, and I just really would recommend that you look at the different websites and kind of like compare what academics are there and kind of what areas they research in, also what research groups they have that are active. So that's something really there to consider. Is it better to do a BSc or a BA in geography? I can't really comment on that. Some courses, university courses in geography are BScs, and some are BA. The geography course in Oxford is a BA course. That's what we do. We don't offer an alternative to that. So it really does come down to kind of what you would prefer, I think. I'll say a bit more about this later on, but what I will say about the Oxford course is that we do cover both the physical and human side of geography. So that's kind of something that we do that not every course does. So that's something to consider if you're kind of wondering whether kind of which kind of courses offer kind of both, or which specialize in certain areas. You'll see that some universities do specialize in kind of more the physical side, the human side. Others kind of like us actually kind of look at both together, especially in the first year in prelims. Which college offers? Last question. Which college offers to study human geography? Well, all the colleges that admit geography actually offer both physical and human geography, and that have physical and human geography tutors. So all colleges cover both those sides of the discipline. You'll find. So there isn't a particular college that is just deals with human geography. They all will do that if they admit geographers. That is, currently there are 14 colleges that admit geography in Oxford. So all of those will cover human geography as well as physical geography. Okay, that's come to the questions there. So if you are someone who came to one of our open days recently and was there for my presentation, you may it's very much up to you. You know, do you feel you can stay with us, but you may also wish to leave now because I'm about to do that same presentation. Okay. Well, hopefully what you can see on your screen is the first slide of my presentation, which says Geography at Oxford, where will it take you? And so I'm just going to start going through that from there. So I'd just like to do, what I'd like to do just to start off with is to talk about why geography. So why you might choose geography as a subject to study at university. So speaking quite generally before I get into Oxford, I think the thing I'd say about that, there are a number of reasons that studying geography at the moment is a good option. Geography is very broad in its approach. It's also very interdisciplinary, which means if you're a little bit unsure as a prospective undergraduate, kind of where your interests really lie at this stage, and kind of thinking that you'd like to do something which is kind of more of a general degree, then geography can be a really good option for you. And so from that, we can also kind of like start to talk about how it deals with real world issues and a lot of the contemporary current issues that we're facing, climate change, inequality. This is something that geographers are looking at and researching into, and it's something that you can learn all about at university at the moment. So not just, though, is it broad and interdisciplinary, it's also specialized. So geographers, although they're geographers, happen to specialize in different parts of the discipline. So I'm also a geomorphologist, and to be even more specific, I'm a biogeomorphologist. And so each of us have our own specialism. And it's this kind of specialization which kind of carries through into the undergraduate course as well. So although there's a very broad kind of scope of the course, it also becomes very specialized over time, and you have the option to specialize in certain areas. Geographers now are very employable, partly because of all the skills that they develop as undergraduates. So as a geographer, you will be learning data analysis skills, you'll be learning presentation skills, writing skills, lots of different skills that are really attractive to employers in a wide variety of careers. And this next slide really does talk about what some of those careers are. In around about 2023, the RGS did a study of graduates. And what they found was that 75% of those who had left were actually in work, and 25% of those had gone into further study. And from that, 58% were actually in full-time work, the rest in part-time work and study. And you can see there right at the end, a whole list of careers that they were going into. And I've read quite a few of these out earlier on. And once I'd add to that, our politics and the media as well, we're finding that our students are kind of going into journalism, then off into the media, into politics. So there's a whole kind of host of careers now, not just those traditional careers of education, the civil service, etc., which you might expect geographers to go into. There's a whole range of careers that we're finding geographers are going into at the moment. What I can say, though, about us here in Oxford, we're actually finding that the number of students here who are going into further study is greater than that. So it's actually around about a 50% split between those who are going into work and those who are going into further study. So quite a lot of our students go on to master's programs and PhD programs. I'm going to talk a little bit now and give you some examples of former undergraduates here and what they've gone on to do in relation to two particular careers. One of them, the first one, in fact, is maybe not one you'd traditionally associate with geographers, and that's business. We have here Ashley Ainsley, who was an undergraduate at St Catherine's College in geography, went on to be co-founder of Colour in Tech and Black Tech Fest, has worked for Google, and is someone who is really making huge strides in the business world at the moment. And I really recommend that you have a listen to Ashley's Spotify, actually. And in that, he talks about a lot of skills that he's developed over time, and many of them are those which he would have developed as a geographer here in Oxford. And now on to something which might be considered a little bit more of a traditional kind of geographical pathway. This is Kate Hughes. And Kate was a geographer also at St Catherine's College here. She started off life in the civil service and has since gone on to work as become CEO of WaterAid, one of the CEOs there, and is now the UK lead climate negotiator for the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. These are two individuals who've gone through our system who I think have kind of really benefited from the skills they would have learned here. And likewise, as with Ashley, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about Kate, you might want to check out her YouTube, the YouTube there, which is her talking about climate change and kind of her role in it and in negotiations around that and understanding it. Moving on. So why geography at Oxford? I think already I've started to kind of talk a little bit about kind of what our geographers go on to do. And what I really want to do now is start to talk a little bit more about the department itself. So I'm going to start off with something we're incredibly proud of. And the department here in Oxford has recently been ranked first in the 2025 QS World University Rankings for geography. This is the second year in a row. And that for us is a huge thing. What does it say for prospective undergraduates? I think it says that if you come to us, you're in safe hands. And what else can I say about the geography degree here and the department? Well, it's a very interdisciplinary degree, as I've kind of already started to talk about. And students eventually, after their first year, can start to map their own pathway within it. And there's flexibility in it as well to develop personal interests throughout the course. When undergraduates come to us to study geography, they aren't just at the School of Geography being taught by geographers from the School of Geography. Under the roof of the School of Geography, we already also have three other really world-leading institutions. We have the Environmental Change Institute. We have the Oxford Smith School, which is focused very much on sustainability in business, again, world-leading. And we have the Transport Studies Unit, which looks at mobilities and technologies in relation to that, and networks, and again is a world-leading institution. So our students here are not just exposed to what geographers like myself have to say about the world. They are also exposed to what a number of other leading researchers in the fields of the environment, sustainability, business, and transport have to say too. And they regularly attend seminars given by those research institutions as well within the department. So you can see that we have a number of leading world institutions that we are able to kind of expose our students to as well. Let's talk a little bit about the course structure now. So the course is really split up into two sections. The first section is known as preliminary examination, and you can see what kind of makes up the course itself. There are 4 written examinations, fieldwork report is written, a 1,500-word essay, and everything is compulsory in the first year. And I should add that the students study both physical and human geography to get them all up to kind of the same place. And then from the year 2, they start what is known as the final honours school, and that goes on to the year 3. And in that, they have 6 written examinations, a fieldwork report, 3 submitted essays, and a 12,000-word dissertation to do, which for many students is their favourite part of the geography degree here. And all that is made up of a variety of teaching and learning components. So first of all, lectures. So on average, I think the kind of first years, they're in lectures for about 7 to 8 hours a week. In the first 2 terms, it's usually kind of 2 a day, and it kind of reduces in the 3rd term, but averages out around about 7 or 8 hours a week over the year. And in the 3rd term, obviously, they're more concerned with exams and some submitted work that they need to be working on. And then we also have practicals. The practicals take place in School of Geography in our labs, and also in the classroom. And we also have fieldwork. And in the first year, some of the fieldwork that takes place is right at the start of the year at Portland, for example, at the end of the year in Wytham Woods. And I'll talk a little bit more about the fieldwork in both the first and second years in a little while. And we also have students who will be engaged with independent learning throughout their time here at the university. It becomes a really important part of their learning over time, and increasingly so from years 2 onwards. In the first year, we're very much training them to be independent learners and independent thinkers. And from year 2, we find that they're often kind of going off into seminars that we didn't know actually were on. Which is really pleasing, and telling us all about them as when they come to meet with us. The final thing I just want to talk about is something which is quite specific and particular to Oxford, and maybe sets us apart somewhat. Cambridge have something similar as well, known as supervisions, and what we have something known as the tutorial system. And this is where undergraduates come to tutorials maybe once a week, twice a week sometimes, and they meet with their tutor in college, and they'll usually be with another geographer, maybe a couple of undergraduate geographers in their year, and they will discuss a particular topic that they've been learning about that week. Now, it may be that we've set them an essay, it may be we've set them a particular kind of data task, but it usually relates into what they've been doing in lectures also. So this kind of small group teaching is something that is quite specific to us in Oxford, and also to a certain degree in Cambridge as well. So let's just go on to year 1 and look in a little bit more detail what the preliminary examinations are all about. You can see here how it's all split up. There are 4 papers for prelims. The first paper is Earth System Processes. That is what you may know as physical geography. You might be asking there, where's the hydrology? Well, the hydrology is taught throughout the ecology, the climatology, and geomorphology there. Then we have Human Geography paper, Space and Place, Networks and Mobilities, Power and Identity. And something that the undergraduates notice on kind of spot when they first come to us is that all the names have changed of things. And so at first this can be a little bit disconcerting, but after a while they start to realise kind of what areas of their kind of A-level course or Highers or IB course or whatever course they've been doing kind of fit into kind of like how we structure things here in the school. They also will do a paper on geographical techniques, and this is where the classes I was talking about comes into play. So they'll have classes on statistics, and they'll have classes on qualitative methods, interviews, that sort of thing. And they also have classes on techniques such as GIS and remote sensing. So those classes will take place in the laboratory, as I said, but also in the computer labs too, as well. And the 4th part of the undergraduate first year course, the prelims course, is called Geographic Controversies. And for many of our students, first years, this is probably the most interesting and fun part of the course. This part of the course looks at a group of set texts, and the students get to choose from those set texts, maybe usually 1 or 2 of them, to really focus on and think about what kind of controversies in geography there are. And I'll just go forward now to those books that we had in the last year. I should say, actually, don't worry about making too many notes or trying to take photographs of everything. This PowerPoint will actually go up on our website in due course in a few weeks' time, I hope. But it will be put up. So you can see here some of the books that we use for teaching geographical controversies. Some of them are controversial themselves, and some of them are just kind of more about a controversy. But all of them are really good texts for kind of teaching critical thinking and teaching our undergraduates to really kind of think critically about what they are reading and what they are being told. And two of those books, for example, in particular, are about the environment. We've got Rachel Carson's amazing book from 1962, Silent Spring. And also we have George Monbiot's Regenesis from 2023. Both books looking at the environment, both books very concerned about the environment. One concerned about the actions, in particular about the actions of government, and the other one very much concerned about the actions of the environmental movement, or the inactions of the environmental movement, we should say. And both books in some way controversial. We find that these texts are really useful for kind of teaching kind of about aspects of geography that the students are having lectures on, but also those kind of like honing those really kind of like critical thinking skills, which become really useful in essay writing and presentations and the rest of it. Okay, so let's get on to the final honours school now. So in years 2 and 3, the students go to the final honours school, and there's only, in fact, I should say there's 2 compulsory parts of the final honours school. At the top there, you can see geographical thought, which includes skills workshops and also kind of a residential field trip. But with GT, what that's about is really kind of the histories and practices and philosophies of geography that have to kind of developed over time, and that is compulsory. Another compulsory aspect is also the undergraduate dissertation, which I'll get onto in a little while. But there are 3 core options for the final honours school. So it's at this point that students may start to decide whether they kind of want to take a kind of physical geography pathway or a human geography pathway. And of course, some students can't decide that and actually still want to take kind of still want to learn about both physical and human geography and continue to study them. If you're a physical geographer, it may be that you go along the route of choosing Earth system dynamics and environmental geography because you choose 2 of those core options out of 3. So those physical geographers might go the ESD route and the EG route, as we would abbreviate them. The human geographers may decide to go to space, place and society, and also environmental geography as well. The reason being, environmental geography is one of these kind of areas of geography at the moment which it knits together both physical and human geography. It's where the kind of 2 parts of the discipline meet. And it's a really fruitful area of geography at this point in time. So outside of your 2 core options that you choose, you then have 3 other options that you will choose from a whole kind of list of options which cover the breadth of physical and human geography. And as I've said there at the bottom is the dissertation. Here are some examples of some options that we've run in recent years. And you'll see from this that there's a whole range of physical options and also human geography options as well. The options kind of do change year on year somewhat. And that will depend on kind of what academics are in the buildings at the time. We have various academics who will go on sabbatical and leave at various points, so won't run their course that year. And also we have new academics coming in as well. So the options reflect essentially the research interests of the staff. But we like to think we have a good range of what we do. And so our students tend to be well catered for when it comes to their own interests. As I've mentioned, fieldwork is something which also takes place. And in the second year, there is at the start of the second year, in the start of spring term in the second year, they get to go on a field trip. And that usually is to Amsterdam, Utrecht, or Tenerife. Those are the 3 options we've got going for them at the moment. Now, if you're a physical geographer, it may be that you head off to Tenerife. If you're a human geographer, Amsterdam tends to be a really kind of popular choice. Environmental geographers tend to go to Utrecht and tend to look at sustainability there. So again, our field trips tend to kind of accommodate all those different interests of the geographers that we have. I think I might have said that it was kind of start of spring term. It's actually late spring that our second years head off on their travels. Dissertation topics. So I just thought what I'd do is just kind of give you a little idea of some of those topics that our undergraduates have kind of researched for their undergraduate dissertation. And as you'll see from this, an undergraduate dissertation really can be about anything at all, as long as it's underpinned by kind of geography in some way. And this is just a tiny handful of some of the topics that we've had in recent years. But you'll see there are physical geography topics, there are human geography topics, there are environmental geography topics. So there really are kind of no limits to what can be studied. The way kind of our undergraduates tend to go about doing it is that some prefer just to kind of stay locally, stay at home and do their undergraduate dissertations. Some of our students do go abroad. Some of them join on with research teams from the university and actually kind of have sort of internships with them and go abroad with them over the summer. But you can kind of see there how there's such a range of options and kind of a range of approaches. And I should add, actually, some of our students do desk-based dissertations. They might do climate change modelling, for example, or climate science modelling. So that happens too. Okay. A question we get asked a lot is, what kind of student are we looking for? It's a really difficult question to answer this. And the straightforward answer is we are looking for exactly the same student as and students that every other university is looking for. You know, we're looking for bright people who are passionate about geography. It really is that simple. But maybe I should say a little bit about our assessments and kind of like how we go about finding those people ultimately. Our assessments are really only made on academic criteria. So I talked a little bit about extracurricular activities earlier on from a question we had. Well, they won't form part of our assessment. And if you do include them on a UCAS form, it's really a good idea to relate them into kind of what we might call the kind of key attributes that we look for in an undergraduate. And so I'll come to those a little bit later, but kind of really show how they have developed you as a geographer. Successful candidates will have a good academic record, but there are no fixed criteria about the number of GCSEs, 8, 9, and A stars. We have no baseline for that. It varies year on year and depends very much on the cohort who are applying. But we do kind of, ultimately, it's a competitive process and we do have to shortlist. And so the results will be taken into consideration at some point in the process. That does happen, but we can't state a fixed criteria for that. It very much depends year on year, kind of on the cohort we have. We're looking for those with a genuine interest in the subject, which goes beyond simply learning what teachers tell you, and this is something I've covered already. And that tends to be something that really comes across in interview, actually, when we're presenting students and with things they've never seen before, and presenting ideas they've never seen before, or data sets and graphs they haven't thought about before or had any exposure to. We find that the students that tend to do really well on these things are able to draw from kind of their own experiences and draw upon what they have learned, but draw upon from things outside of that as well. So kind of like their experiences from home or their local environment, or experiences from holidays, or experiences from working, a Saturday job, for example, to be able to kind of like, put together answers and make links between things. So kind of like displaying a genuine interest or a real passion for the subject, I think needs to come across to us, and with those candidates who are successful, usually does. A willingness to apply knowledge to sorry, just go back. Yeah, a willingness to apply knowledge and skills to new situations. Yes, this is really important because in interview, that's exactly what the students will face. They'll face new situations. In the interview, we won't be just kind of like we won't have a kind of checklist of everything they should know at A level or at IB, etc., and just test them on it. It's not how that works. It's their kind of application of knowledge is that we're interested in. So and as I said, in interviews, we will present something to them which they more than likely have not thought about before, and just see how they respond to it as geographers. Okay. A little bit more now about the admissions process itself. So as I've mentioned previously, there are 14 colleges in Oxford that currently admit geography undergraduates. So it's when it comes to kind of choosing your college or kind of like visiting colleges or thinking about colleges, beware of that and make sure that you choose that you go to the university website and check what those colleges are who currently admit for geography. So I put them up there, but it just if you go to the university website, you can be absolutely sure that nothing's changed for the coming year. In terms of offers that we make offers to those candidates who have been successful in interview. And the typical offer at the moment is A star AA at A level, but geography is not an absolute requirement there, and the A star does not actually need to be in geography. IB 39 points, usually 7 in geography, AA and AAB advanced hires, and we usually admit between 80 to 83 undergraduates each year, roughly. It depends on whether we have students who have kind of deferred, etc., and also it depends on the cohort we've interviewed as well, and what colleges, what numbers of places colleges can offer that year. Just want to say a little something about it. You might be surprised by this statement here that geography is not an absolute requirement. It's not, and the reason being is that we kind of understand that some students, when they are doing their kind of later studies in school, kind of find themselves a bit later and kind of discover what they're really passionate about and what they're interested in later on in their school career. We sometimes get undergraduates or prospective undergraduates applying to us without geography, and occasionally they're offered places. They have to show that they are applying to do a geography degree for a very good reason, and obviously you have to show their passion for the subject also. But kind of here in Oxford, in the department, we've got a very good example of someone who found they were a geographer later in life, and that's someone called Professor Miles Allen, who is a professor in the department, an environmental geographer, physical geographer, someone who is at the forefront of climate change research at the moment and net zero. And Miles started life as a physicist in the university, and one day decided that they needed to become a geographer to be able to have much bigger conversations around climate change. So we know all too well that someone can suddenly realise at some point in their academic career that they are actually a geographer. So we do give young people and prospective undergraduates, mature students, the option of figuring this out a little bit later. So that's that. A little bit more about admissions. So our students here are admitted through colleges. It makes no difference to a student's chance of being accepted as to what college they apply to. So there's a process that takes place after all applications have been made, a process by which is known as allocation, whereby we have a computer which actually reallocates students to all the different colleges. So although many of our students will have chosen a college to apply to, quite often they will find that they've been reallocated somewhere else. The reason being is that it's to give them a fairer chance of success. Because if you have 20 or 30 undergraduates applying to one college and 4 or 5 applying to another, as you'll see from that, you'll see that there's a potential chance that there's a very unfair situation and imbalance about the chances of success. So we have a system whereby reallocation takes place. Just to give you an idea, about 30% of applicants actually are interviewed by other colleges. And I think last year we found that between 15 to 20% of successful candidates actually got an offer at a college other than the one they had applied to. So you can get a sense there that it doesn't impact on one's chances negatively of getting a place in the university here. It actually impacts, we find, positively on your chances of getting a place. And when it comes to choosing college, in many ways, the colleges are all very similar. They have sports teams, kind of music and drama societies, and all the university activities that we have here in Oxford are available to all students at all colleges. So in that regard, it doesn't really matter. It tends to be a personal choice. And if you have the opportunity to go and visit the colleges, I recommend that, because you get a sense of kind of, what they're about and what kind of sort of place you may wish to spend your 3 years in. Or if you're not able to visit, consult the websites, have a look at the different college websites. Each college has got its own webpage. Have a look at it, get a sense of it, go try and get a feel for it. And in fact, some colleges, many of them now have virtual tours on their particular website. Okay. Final decisions are made on the basis of a variety of evidence. So, as I've mentioned, students' academic records is important. The school reference is important too. The interviews are equally important. It's probably during that time that things start to become clearer to the academics here in admissions. I think that they really do help us in terms of establishing who we think is going to benefit from the course here in Oxford. Something to say about the interviews, a little bit more likely to be online. They will be online again, I believe, in December of this year. And they're like a short tutorial, really. They're really like just a discussion between the tutors who are giving them and the prospective undergraduates. So they kind of like play out very much as a tutorial would. There usually will be 2 interviews. Quite often that will take the kind of form of a physical geography interview and a human geography interview. However, occasionally some colleges like to combine physical and human in both interviews. But physical geography and human geography will, on the whole, be covered in both on interviews at those colleges. So in terms of the interview itself, I've talked a little bit about how it's very likely that a prospective undergraduate will come across something they've not seen before as part of that process. Now, this might be a response to spatial data, for example, and there's a few ideas here about what sort of things could come up, like a case study. But what interviews don't do is they don't test knowledge as such. They're kind of or kind of like factual information as such. They're kind of testing the application of knowledge. So as I said, we don't have a tick sheet kind of checking everything. That you know everything about coastal geomorphology there is to know. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. Okay. And linking into that, kind of what we're kind of looking at and how we're kind of sort of assessing in a way links into these factors here. And I talked a little bit earlier about success criteria. Well, these kind of are them, essentially. So you'll be assessed in relation to independent thinking, the ability to follow an argument. It may be that during the interview you're presented with an argument, and you may be questioned about that. You may be asked to extend the argument. You may be asked to critique the argument. So that's kind of how that might play out. Problem-solving skills in interview. Again, you will be presented with a problem, and we will try to establish kind of how you might go about solving that, and how you go about thinking about that problem and analysing it. And you will be judged on your academic record also. It is, of course, a competitive process. It's a highly competitive process. When we find that these factors together tend to kind of help us in terms of admitting our undergraduates. I'm coming towards the end of the session now, and I've got what I hope here are some kind of questions that we're usually asked, which may be useful to you and things you might be wondering about. And there's some frequently asked questions that I've decided to put on the slides here. So I'm just going to go through them, and hopefully, if you've got any further questions, it might be covered in these coming slides. So first of all, will my application be considered if I retake an A2 subject? Well, the answer there is that on the whole, I'm afraid your application won't be considered. And the reason being is that, as I've said, it is a competitive process. And if there are no extenuating circumstances, I think colleges will question a great deal why you may have be applying and having failed one of your A2 subjects, and that it's in reality unlikely that you'll be taken into consideration and you'll be shortlisted. But that very much depends on the individual, and there may be extenuating circumstances, of course, and that will play out slightly differently. But on the whole, it is unlikely that your application will be considered if you have failed and need to retake one of the A2 subjects. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there it is there. wasn't working for a moment. Is there any advantage in waiting until after I have my A-level results to apply to Oxford? No, we have no preference for pre or post A-level candidates. It's very much your choice and personal preference. Can I apply for a deferred place? I'd start the year later. Yes, you can. What I will say about that, though, I'm just trying to go through where the answer is. Oh, not coming through at the moment. There we go. Yes, it is there. Yes, you can. And what I will say about that is that if you are looking to apply for a deferred place, you need to understand that during the admissions process, the tutors will be trying to compare you with a cohort they've not seen, as in what will the cohort be like in the following year. So to offer you a place is essentially going to take a place away from the following year's cohort. So tutors will need to be, and admissions tutors will need to be absolutely sure that you are someone they would definitely have offered a place, they will offer a place to in a year or so's time. So to kind of be sure of that, it's very likely you will need to be one of the top picks for that college that year. So it's so hopefully that kind of shows you that although it is very possible to apply for a deferred place, for a tutor to offer on that, and they've got to be really sure about you moving forward. So that's the only thing to kind of bear in mind if that's the kind of pathway you're thinking of taking. Will an EPQ put me at an advantage? In short, no, it won't. The reason being, not every school offers them. Not every student we see in interview has done one. So it's not really something we feel we can use in assessment. Of course, doing an EPQ isn't a bad thing necessarily. It can be a good thing. It can be something that develops you as a geographer. It develops you as a thinker. But it's not something that we'll be using in our assessment. Something else just to say here, and a colleague kind of relayed this to me quite recently. It's really unfortunate when a student receives an offer to come and study with us, and then unfortunately doesn't meet the grades. And we've had a situation in the past whereby someone's really focused on their EPQ and doing 4 A levels, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, they haven't quite made the grades, made the offer. And the thing to realise is that offer is on the whole fairly set in stone with colleges now. It's very unusual for colleges to bend on that. Obviously, occasionally with extenuating circumstances, that can be different. But if colleges are offering A-star A, then that's what they will expect to see come August time. Yeah, I think that kind of that really covers that. But you certainly won't be at an advantage doing an EPQ in terms of admissions. Okay. Will doing 4 A levels put me at an advantage? Again, very similar way, and I've kind of just brushed upon this. It won't put you at an advantage. We don't go on points. It's, we go on an offer of A-star AA, and that's what we expect to see. If you kind of, just miss out on that, but have got a B in or an A in your 4th A level, I'm afraid it's just not going to matter. It's the A-star AA that counts. When will I know the result of my application? Well, the application results are usually announced in January, so there will be interviews. As I said, if you're shortlisted as an undergraduate, a prospective undergraduate, you'll be interviewed in December, and we make final decisions kind of end of December, start of January, and then candidates will be informed in January. And then, of course, if you've already got your grades, if you're post A2 or post highs, etc., what happens at that point is that you will essentially be accepted to the university to start the coming year, or later if it's deferred. Or if you're pre-A level or pre-examination, what will happen is you'll be then given an offer, and then the final part of the process happens in the summer once all those grades are in and admissions decisions are final admissions decisions are made. Okay, so just to say, that's pretty much the presentation. And I hope that was that was informative for you, and I hope that's kind of hopefully answered a few questions you might have had. Just to say, you can also come to our website. We're available online. Come to the School Geography website. There's more information there for prospective undergraduates to kind of have a look through. A lot of it I've talked about, but there are some other frequently asked questions there too, which may be relevant to you. Or if you have a question that comes to you after this evening, by all means, get in touch with me. If you contact Access Outreach, that email address there at ouc.ox.ac.uk, that will come through to me, and I'll be able to put together a response for you. So I hope that's been useful, and I hope that's been a helpful exercise. Like I said, please do get in touch if you have any further questions. I'd be delighted to help you out. I've seen that some of you are posting questions on the chat. Very strangely, the chat is not available to me at the moment, which is very odd as someone who's organised this webinar, so I can't see them. So what I'm going to say is this: if you are someone who's posted a question on the chat, if you wouldn't mind emailing me your question, accessoutreach@ouc.ox.ac.uk, that would be great, and I'll get back to you. I'm very sorry about that. The questions are just not coming through to me at the moment, which is highly unusual. But there we go. So please do email me, and I will get back to you. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for coming, and yes, please do keep in touch. Okay, bye.